only because
Hi, today's guest is a fascinating woman. Her name is Gillian Maddigan, and she's got a number of really unique skill sets. But the one I'm super curious about, and I know you're going to be as well, is about her unique ability to decode what our body and our face is saying about ourselves before we open our mouths. So welcome, Gillian. I'm delighted to have you here.
absolute pleasure. I've been watching you for a while and you're very entertaining. So when you said, come and can I interview you? I went, yes, please.
Well, I'm delighted because I've seen you in action. I've seen you speaking to an audience and I've seen you hold them in the palm of your hand. So I know that you know how to use your body and your face beautifully. So I'm really, really curious. And I know that the viewers will be just as curious. How on earth did you stumble upon this wonderful way of helping us be more of who we could be and our best selves?
Okay, so I'm an immigrant and you can't tell from my voice because I sound quite Australian, but I was born in India and I lived in New Guinea in this beautiful tropical place. And then my parents divorced and my mum came to northwest Queensland, and it went from tropical, beautiful, relaxed, open spaces to dry, heat sucking, and actually arrived in winter, so it was about 6 degrees. And it was such a shock to my system. It was also a shock to my system that I had no friends and the community was totally different. I spoke English, but the type of English that these people that in this town spoke was so foreign, and it actually created these weird misconnections, like miscommunications, because the words they were using and the words I was using tend to have different meanings, and it was very, very confusing. It was also a town that had over 26 different other nationalities, and the children started to learn English, but the parents actually generally didn't have English as their even their second or their third language. So it was a mining town, and the foremans ran their little groups of Finns or Italians or Greeks or whatever it was, and so there was this multicultural blend of people. Now, I was really proud of being an Indian, but no one knew what an Indian was. So my name was Gillian Muller. Muller was a German name. It had umlauts over it. Gillian was with the G. It was an English name. It sounded foreign as well because they wanted to call me Gillian. So there was this misconnections that were happening, and Indian to them was, feathers in the hat and even at 7 I knew that they were on the wrong continent. So whole story about loss of identity, no one knew who I was, and I also felt unsafe. So I started to watch people, how they connected, how they communicated, how they so I could find a place that I felt safe in. So watching people and I didn't know it was I was reading body language and things like that. So for me, I became a watcher. I learned how to become invisible really, really easily so I could watch people. And it also made me safe. It then also allowed me to be in groups that were, how do I say this? The mastery groups, the ones that would contain the bullies and things like that, but I could sit in the background of them. I didn't have to sit with them. I could sit behind them and be part of that energy. So for me, I spent most of my school years finding my identity and finding different ways to communicate with lots of different types of people.
That's absolutely fascinating, because it sounds like it was such a terrible experience that you really felt disconnected and invisible. But in the process, you were busy developing this ninja skill to be able to see people for who they really were and how they were moving around in groups. I mean, that's fascinating. And you've been doing this now since then.
Yes, so since I was 7, and also I also would love to mimic people's posture. So, you know, I could walk around like a particular teacher and other people would know who he was. And, you know, so all this mimicking was actually occurring. And in that mimicking, I was learning how people use their bodies and how I use my body as well. So how I could get people to connect with me and communicate with me if I held myself in a particular way or I came out in a particular way. So learning how my body worked. Now, it wasn't until I was 28 and my husband passed away and I came to live on the Gold Coast and connected with my dad again. And he'd actually developed psychosomatic therapy. Now, psychosomatic therapy is the connection between the mind and the body. And he'd collected all these different ways people communicated and put it together using the energy systems. And I realized that I'd actually been doing this subconsciously, developing all these skills. And now he had developed this training program that you could learn how to master your own body language and you'll have an understanding about how your body works, how your mind works with it, and how you communicate.
It's absolutely fascinating. So my next question is, I mean, it kind of leads into it, what you've said, because I can hear the power of understanding this. I mean, what makes you so passionate specifically about wanting to teach people about this?
Communication is really my thing. I really love the way people communicate. Human beings have this myriad of ways of communicating, but they also have a lack of understanding how they do it. So then miscommunication, it keeps occurring. And when you have miscommunication, there's lots of angst and fighting and it's almost like people have to keep going round and round and round in circles until they smack into each other. And then they go, hang on a second, isn't that what I was saying? Aren't you saying what I was saying? So it was like, I want people to understand that they have control of their lives if they understand how they do what they do. So
Well,
body language, yeah. So underneath the body language is just the way we've learned to repeat conversation, repeat how we do things. But I want you to learn why you do what you do.
I think for me, that's truly fascinating because of my background, understanding neural pathways and understanding how we set ourselves up to communicate. What you're trying to do is to get people to break the neural pathways that stop them from communicating optimally with other people, not so?
Exactly. But also communicating with themselves. So in understanding how your neural pathways work is essential because, you know, when you start something new, so a perfect example of what I'm doing at the moment, I'm renovating my kitchen, family room, and all that type of stuff. And we're pulling everything apart. Now, my kitchen is how would I put it? My meditation zone. It's where I have great pleasure and passion. Now, I'm actually dismantling it completely. And it's causing a lot of ructions in my body in that process because I have to go through all my equipment and decide whether to let go or whether to keep it. And the memory that's attached to some of that equipment, I also need to decide to let go. And these are all little neural pathways that you actually create over time because they give you pleasure, they give you whatever it is, comfort, because of the memory that's attached. Now, that's the same thing with your body language. You've created all these pathways, this expectation, but you don't even know that they exist. It's just a reaction that you keep having. So it keeps turning up. It's what they call in gambling a tell. You know, you've got this tell you don't even know that you have, and other people can tell what it is, but you don't even know that it exists. So it's this pathway that you've subconsciously created. And now it was probably great when you were creating it, but then when you've reached now and it's become redundant, but you don't know it's become redundant until you get pushback. Like it's like, no, that's not working. That's not working. That's not working.
Well, this leads me into the next question, which I'm quite nervous of asking you, but let's just jump in and I'll have a swig of water so that I can make myself feel brave. What are the three biggest mistakes that we all make with our body and our face until we know better?
Okay, so there's several ways that can happen. Reaction is one of the biggest challenges most people have because they don't recognize it's a reaction. They think they're taking action, but it's a reaction. It's an old neural pathway that exists, and that's what I was talking about with the tell. So when somebody goes, oh, you do this when you do this, take note, because they're giving you a clue rather than getting all worked up. No, I don't. Take note, because they're giving you some feedback that may be really effective in showing you how you turn up for particular people. So that's one thing.
That's fabulous.
So the other thing is, how does your mind work? Are you more likely to go, that person is doing that to me? Or is the first step you do, oh, that's an interesting reflection. How am I reacting to this and why am I doing it? So this is the mental process we go through. Rather than going, you're doing that to me, going, okay, why am I reacting to this? What is it? Is it the tone of their voice? Is it the way they're holding themselves? The tone of the voice could be some person from way back when in some old memory. The way they're holding themselves could again be something that they've reacted to way back when. It could be a smell. Smells engage you really quickly. So when someone turns up and they've been smoking, one of the first things that happens to me is I remember my stepdad smoking, and I used to sit behind him in the car. So for me, I've already started going, ah, inside me before I've even had conversation with this person. So they've arrived and I've already started going through my internal judgment process. So that judgment is to keep us safe.
And then your body will naturally react, won't it, to that instance? Because you're pulling up that neural pathway and now you're just going into knee-jerk habitual response.
Yep. So your body could tighten. If you're in defense mode, it could go into a tight lockdown. It could become flaccid because you're just like, oh, no, I'm just going to give in to everything. Or you can freeze. Nothing's happening. So there's your oxygen level reduces, your mental processes reduces, and you almost go into like the stunned mullet, you know. And
so it's kind of like a stress response in that instant that you're not even aware of. It's just habitual.
And identifying your stress response. And sometimes people have different stress responses depending on what type of situation they're in. So a stress response for me, I'm a lifesaver. So as soon as an accident happens, I become very slow and everything just falls into place. Everything just slows down and all my skills come on board just like that. So
it's phenomenal.
But if I have a fear response to falling, my body just goes into complete, it's like a balloon bursting with water inside. Have you ever seen a balloon filled up with water, and when you burst it, it just goes, that's what happens to me when I've actually in that type of fear response. So understanding how you do things is really, really important, because then you actually have control. And when you have control, what happens to your stress, right?
Way down.
Yeah. So understanding how your mind, your body communicate together. And then the third one is who stimulates you. Who
That's a
turns you
big
on
one.
and off? Or what turns you on and off? You know, so there's several ways that you actually will respond or take action in your world. But having a real understanding of how you do it gives you a greater understanding of other people. And then that reduces your stress because you have insight.
Yes. I'm just blown away. Now I understand so much more of it because I understand the stress response. But I think what you're basically telling us is that we have to spend some time introspecting, thinking about our responses, thinking about what triggers us, thinking about the kind of people that stimulate us positively and negatively so that we can respond and allow our body to be in the best space possible to respond with insight.
Well, when you respond, I think there's a couple of steps before you respond. So first thing is you get a reaction. It's just, and then you hold that reaction rather than letting it out straight away. You might physically, mentally, emotionally get a reaction. Then you hold it for a second, for a couple of breaths. Allow it to settle, then take action. And that is your response. Because if you react, then there's no space for you to create change or have a choice. You're just going back into an old pattern. Because a reaction just means an action that's getting rehashed. It's just happening over and over again. There is no possibility of change. So the inner sight work, the inside work that you do is about the hold, allowing the emotion, the mental processes just to permeate and give you space for choice.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful, Gillian, because that is the only way one can change if you hold on to that space, because that's all we have control over, isn't it? That space. And in that moment, we can pull in a new way of being, a new way of acting.
Yeah.
So this leads me now to the next question. And I know this will be very difficult for you because I know that you have read thousands of faces and thousands of bodies. But if you can just, what is the top one? The top success story that really jumps out at you and makes you get goosebumps and go, I'm so pleased that change happened. What is that one story? And if you have more than one, that's okay, but like the one top one.
Okay. I'm gonna give you a really out there one. I used to read at festivals and things like that because it's really like when I face read, it's very analytical and very structured. But I used to go to festivals where there was lots of psychics and people like that, but it's intangible. But on your face, when you read someone's face, you can actually break it down into sections and things like that. And it brings it back to the person. Anyway, and it gives them control. This lady, we were reading 40 people a day. Now that's 10-minute readings, not going to the toilet, really bad for your body. Not going to the toilet for 10 hours, like just bang, 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 one after another. Anyway, on our 40th, it was a second day. No, it was a third day, and it was our last reading. And I looked over at my friend, and he and I were most experienced on the stand. And we went, oh, we're done. And then we looked up and there was no one on the stand. There's normally about 6 other people on the stand helping out and reading and also, and they were all gone. And there was this couple standing there. And I'm going, this is very strange. Like there's a couple there and everyone else had legged it. Anyway, I looked up and here's this girl. She's 6 foot tall, gorgeous. She's got big Doc Martens on. She's pierced to the max and she's got her face done in full cat makeup. Absolutely stunning. She was absolutely gorgeous. And her boyfriend had tattoos and all sorts of stuff on his, and he went off to my friend, which I was grateful for because I really wanted to read this girl. And she had piercings up here around her eyes. She had them in her mouth and around here and all up her chest like this. And they were bright red around her eyes and around her chest. And I went, okay, the most important thing is to read the person in front of you. Read who they are presenting right in this moment in front of you. And it's been such a valuable thing all through my life, is to read who is sitting in front of me, no matter how they've made themselves up. Anyway, I started going through the sections of mental, emotional, physical, left and right, feminine and masculine, and just describing all this analytical stuff. And I got to her piercings and I said, your heart is really unhappy because around here is your heart, right? And so all the piercings around here were bright red. And so I read this whole thing and I said, you're very creative and you'll become quite independent, and went through all this stuff, and it was like reassuring her of who she was. And she said to me, thank you for that. This is my first day out. I've had heart surgery, and a month ago, and this is my first day out. And you've just told me that exactly what I needed to hear. Yes, all these piercings are coming out because my heart is happy now. I used to live on the street, was thrown out by my parents, and I became this person. And I've got this job as a model because of my journey, and now I know that it's time for change. And I just went, wow. I knew nothing about her heart surgery, but her body was talking to me. Her body was saying how unhappy it was having all these piercings, all this intrusion into herself. So that's like a way out there kind of thing, right?
Look, it's way out, but it's truly amazing because you were able to read something into someone that you didn't know from anywhere, and her body and what she had done to her body was speaking so much more loudly than anything she could have said. So I think that's truly amazing.
And everybody does this. Everybody reads people, but most of the time they read people from their own safety. They don't read people that are in front of them and understand the person in front of them, because they're worrying about their own safety. How is this person going to impact me? And that's why all those people had disappeared off the stand, because they didn't know how to read this person and they had run away.
Well, the mystery was solved then. You knew they were terrified of actually looking at this person. So she came to the right person by coming to you because you didn't run away. And I mean, her life was changed because of that.
And this is another aspect of it. So I had another lady, and I said, there was a whole lot of things going on, and I gave her this bit of information, and she went, no, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. And she ran away, and she was really cross with me. And she came back the next year and she said, all those things you said to me were spot on. I went and had a conversation with my mother, and it's cleared our relationship completely. I didn't know her.
Wow.
I had no idea about who this woman was. I was just reading the information that was on her face, and your face is just a concise version of your entire body mind. So it's just a quick way to see someone and understand them. I'll give you another example, real quick one.
Please do.
At the end of the day, he seems to bring up the most interesting people. This lady sat down. She was head to toe in bike leathers. She was tough. She had this really strong accent, and she sat down and she folded her arms in front of me like this. And I went, oh, I love people like this. So I just went through the process of reading this, and this. And I said, you're such a strong person, but really your femininity really is wanting to come out. And that creative side wants you to recognize it, and this whole process. Anyway, and she stormed off. She stormed off. And because some people just don't want to hear in that moment. 5 years later, I went to a networking group, and I sat down next to this lady, and after the talk that was delivered, she turned around, this is her delivery. She turned around and said to me, when I first met you, I hated everything you had to say. She did that was her entry point. And I've gone, And I could hear her accent and it sounded familiar. And I went, okay. She goes, you read my face 5 years ago. And I went, oh, you're the bike leather lady. And she goes, yes. She was in fuchsia pink. She had her hair all done up. Makeup was gorgeous, everything. She was one of the top Arbonne ladies in Queensland. She said, you changed my life.
What a transformation.
Yeah. And, you know, it wasn't just that. She was still using her karate but delivering in a nice balanced way rather than in an aggressive way. So you don't know the impact of actually connecting with someone where they're at, but when you do, it's transformational, absolutely transformational. And everybody can do this. It's not something that I can do because, you know, I have this cool talent. It's actually a skill, and I've been using it for a very long time. So I'm really quick at it, you know, but it's like any muscle, right? It takes practice. It's a neural pathways.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, I'm fascinated about this and I could talk to you for hours. And I know that the people watching this video will be just as fascinated. So how can they find out more about you, Gillian? Just let us know, because I'm sure they're going to want to chat to you and delve more into your skill, because they can learn it, but you already know it really well.
So there's many ways you can connect with me. Gillian will pop in the website, and I've got a little giveaway that you can use. And this is 7 signs of that your body's betraying you in business, but it actually can be in your family, in your social life. There's many little things that it permeates into. I'm on social media under Gillian Maddigan, and you'll find me everywhere. In a couple of weeks, I'll be offering a face reading live. So just keep an eye out for that. I'll post that into my Facebook page. Yeah, there's many ways you can contact me. You can phone me, message me, email me. Go for it.
Gillian, it's been an absolute delight to have you and to chat to you. And I know that my audience will really enjoy listening and watching and learning and seeing how you use all the skills that you've accumulated. So find Gillian at gillianmaddigan.com. You can find her on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I know she's on all the social media platforms, and her giveaway is a great one. It's the 7 mistakes that people are making and how their body is actually betraying them at work. But whether it's at work or at home or anywhere, that's what's happening. So it was wonderful having you here, Gillian. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck as you carry on reading faces and bodies and transforming people's lives.
Thank you very much, Gillian. Absolute pleasure. And it's easy to answer your questions because they just flow perfectly.
Excellent. Thanks.